Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Trent Steele, retired Secret Service agent and now a director of safety and security at a 40,000 and 20,000 person church. Also 2 K through 12 schools, done a ton of what I would call figuring out ways to transfer what I knew as a special agent with the Secret Service over into the world of protecting you as an individual or your church, school, or business, or whatever entity you have. I think there's a ton of examples that we have where we can actually transfer over those skills and assets and tactics over to the private sector. And so that's what my channel's about. I'm just talking to you a little bit about different ways to do that. As so many of us saw and were horrified at the death of Charlie Kirk, from what appears to be a long-range threat with a firearm, some sort of a rifle. We've seen this type of threat. We've seen this type of violence throughout the history of our country, to include JFK, MLK. That type of long range threat exists. And if you are the director of safety and security at a church, school, business, you're responsible for mitigating threats for events such as a speaker that comes to your campus. Or let's say your business is having a 5K run that at the end has an award ceremony of some kind. I know it seems silly to think that a church would need to be concerned about a long-range threat, but I mean, if you're a terrorist of some sort and you get on a building about 150 yards away from the exit of a church, and as the services are letting out, that could be a real problem, right? That could be something we need to worry about. And so, listen, we don't live in a world anymore where we don't have to mitigate threats because we're not the Secret Service, right? As a director of safety and security, you need to identify threats and mitigate them, whether or not you think they're realistic or not. Things are realistic a lot more than we thought they were. All right, we're living in that world now. So let's talk about the long-range threat and the way to mitigate those problems, right? That particular threat. The best way for you to mitigate your threat from a long-range gun of some sort, rifle, sniper type, is the setting up your site, right? It is the way you set up your site. You can set up a site so that the stage itself is protected in a way that there are no long-range threats, right? There is no ability for a person to get on a building or whatever. If you just take Charlie Kirk's assassination itself, the setup is horrendous. I'm pretty sure that no agent would have ever set it up that way from the Secret Service. I can tell you no boss would have ever said, yeah, this works for us. He was literally in the middle of a shooting target, a shooting range, and it was not a good setup. So the number one way for you as the director of safety and security to keep your people safe from long-range gun threats is to set up the site so that that's not even a problem, right? Or there's maybe one building that's a problem from you so far away that it would take an expert marksman, and you have the ability to get on top of that building, right? But if you set your site up so that there's 10 buildings or 10 different places where a sniper could set up a perch of some sort, then that's on you, right? You're not helping your team mitigate that threat at all. Okay, so that's the number one way. The number two way, the way we would have done it probably in the Secret Service after setting our site up well, is we would have likely put some counter snipers up there. Now, I know you're saying, come on, Trent, right? I don't have counter snipers here at the church with my 200-person church. No, you don't. Actually, I don't. None of us do, right? Nobody out here is going to be able to get counter snipers. But Could you put someone on the tallest building for 10 minutes before the the service begins, and just at least get eyes on the top of all the other surrounding buildings? You absolutely have a guy with some binoculars that could be a spotter for you 10 minutes before a service, or 10 minutes before a service lets out, or as your 501k, as your 5K run is happening, right? So keep that in mind. Just a person, a volunteer, somebody goes up, they at least get eyes on the buildings around, and they go on the top, the highest building, right? That's an option. A spotter is what I would call that. The most likely these days, technology-wise, is just a drone, right? Just throw a drone up. Obviously, there are different laws in different areas, but throw a drone up that can let you see on top of what would be known as like a sniper's nest of some sort, a place where a guy could put rounds on you downrange. Okay, so a drone can do that. It can mitigate that threat for you. That's a really likely thing. I've got a ton of volunteers. Got volunteers on my team, volunteers at my church who love to do that stuff. And they'll come throw a drone up for me on Sunday morning. Or if I have an event outside, we have football games here in Texas, high school football games, and we'll put a drone up right before everybody's arriving, make sure we got everything's clear. We're using drones a little bit just to take video of games and stuff. And so I can ask that guy, hey, while you're up there, please let me know if you're seeing anything on top of any of these roofs, on top of any of these, on these apartment buildings, that kind of a thing. Another way to actually mitigate that threat is to a line of sight block of some sort, right? So if you have a building that you're concerned about 300 yards away, you've set up your sight, but there is this one building, you're not really sure what you can do about it. That particular building, you could put some sort of a U-Haul, or if your church has a large van of some sort, so that if someone was on that roof and they did try and take aim at you from that roof, that all they're seeing is the side of a truck or a dump truck, right? So another way would be just line of sight. Tents are a good way to do line of sight blocks, right? They're not necessarily gonna stop around like a truck probably would, but at least the guy can't take aim, right? So we can do a line of sight block. And then the last way, and kind of the most crude way, but really a realistic way, is you could just physically clear your vulnerable spots, right? So I've got a building over here. It's 250 yards away. It's the only one I'm concerned about from a line of sight standpoint. I can simply send a volunteer over there with a golf cart and have him take a look around 10 minutes before my service, right? Or even better, if I can put somebody up there, depending on whether or not it's an event that's lasting for 30 minutes, right, or 4 hours. But if it's just a 30-minute event, I could probably put a volunteer security guy, or even just a volunteer up there with a radio that just says, nobody up here. Or if somebody comes up there, they radio back, right? If they're seeing a problem of some sort, they just radio it back in, and we can begin to take action at that point. So those are a few ways. There's other ways to do it, but those are the ways that I think probably make the most sense for you as a director of safety and security somewhere. Highly recommend you think about some of these things as you go out for, my school has little, our kids do little 5K runs. They do all kinds of field days and that kind of stuff. And, part of what I do is go out ahead of time, just look around, say, are these buildings, are these issues for me? Could I put a drone up on these buildings ahead of it? Do I have somebody coming out to already take drone footage for us? And could I ask them to take a look on top of these buildings while they're up there, right? So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're mitigating that. There's a ton of things that we didn't think we needed to worry about at churches, schools, and businesses, but we do. And that's been shown several times now. So keep your people safe, and thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you.